Reed's private jet landed smoothly at McCarran Airport. I looked out the window. The setting sun was painting the Nevada sky a golden scarlet color, and the first lights of Las Vegas were starting to come on in the distance. Sienna, who was sitting next to me, squeezed my hand tightly. "Finally! I've waited so long for this trip," she whispered, and her eyes sparkled with anticipation. I smiled, looking at her excitement. My wife was always like a brightly colored bird, ready to take flight at the first sound of music. Reed, who was sitting across the aisle with his wife Juliet, raised his whiskey glass. "Here's to 10 days of complete detachment. No work, no phone calls, just us in this town." "Here's to a break!" Grayson cheered, putting his arm around his wife Lauren. Theo and his new girlfriend Scarlett joined in the toast as well. I glanced around the cabin. Our group of 8 radiated energy and readiness for adventure. We'd met Reed and Grayson back in business school, and our friendship had only grown stronger over the years. Theo joined our circle later when he opened his first restaurant, where we often visited after work. Now his chain of restaurants has grown all over the West Coast. 20 minutes later, 2 black Escalades were speeding down Las Vegas Strip Boulevard. Sienna leaned against the window, gazing out at the neon signs and fountains. Her thin, ringed fingers beat the rhythm of the music playing in the lounge. She was a successful fashion designer in her mid-20s, but sometimes I thought she was still the same enthusiastic girl I'd met 5 years ago at a charity event. "Look, it's the Bellagio!" Scarlett exclaimed, pointing to the famous fountains. Sienna and Lauren pressed themselves against the glass. Even Juliet, the usually reserved art gallery owner, allowed herself a delighted sigh. "Ladies, this is just the beginning," Theo grinned, adjusting his designer glasses. "Wait until you see our penthouse at the Aria." I leaned back in the leather seat, watching the gleaming casino buildings float by. The last few months had been busy new contracts, business expansion, endless meetings. Sienna and I hadn't seen each other much. She was preparing her new collection. I was lost in the office. We needed this vacation. The rooms at the Aria exceeded all expectations. Our suite was located on the 42nd floor and consisted of 2 bedrooms, a living room with panoramic windows and a terrace overlooking the city at night. Sienna immediately began sorting through her suitcases, hanging her designer outfits in the spacious walk-in closet. "Honey, do you think this dress would be okay for dinner?" She held up the dark blue silk dress I'd given her for her birthday. "You'll look the prettiest in it," I replied, coming up behind her and kissing her neck. She playfully dodged it. "I don't have my hair done yet. Give me an hour to get ready." I grinned. Some things never change. Leaving Sienna to conjure up my look, I stepped out onto the terrace. Las Vegas stretched out below, a sea of lights, neon signs, and endless traffic. Music came from somewhere, mingling with the sound of fountains and the rumble of passing cars. The doorbell heralded the arrival of Reed and Juliet. Reed, impeccable as always in his Tom Ford suit, held up a bottle of champagne. "Where's our beauty?" Juliet asked, elegant in a cream pantsuit. "Getting cleaned up," I glanced at my watch. "About 40 more minutes, I think." "Oh, great!" Juliet cheered. "I'm going to go keep her company. We need to discuss a plan for tomorrow's shopping trip." Reed and I moved to the terrace. He pulled out cigars, our long-standing ritual before important events. "How's business?" he asked, uncorking a cigar. "Things are going according to plan. We're opening a new shopping center in Seattle in 2 months." "I know, I read it in Forbes." Reed let out a ring of smoke. "You're doing good, Fletch. You'll go far." Grayson joined us, and then Theo. The conversation drifted smoothly to golf and the new course that had recently opened in the Vegas suburbs. "We should definitely play a couple rounds," Grayson suggested. "They say the greens there are amazing." Finally, our ladies showed up. Sienna was dazzling in her blue dress, hair styled in an elegant updo, a sapphire necklace around her neck, my wedding anniversary present. She approached me, emitting the scent of her favorite perfume. "So how do I look?" "Terrific," I replied sincerely, admiring my wife. Dinner was booked at one of the most exclusive restaurants in Vegas, Le Cirque at the Bellagio. Exquisite French cuisine, impeccable service, and the subdued light of crystal chandeliers. The perfect start to our vacation. Sienna sat between Theo and me, animatedly discussing the latest fashion trends with Scarlett. I noticed her leaning over to Theo a few times to better hear his comments about the new restaurant he was planning to open in Los Angeles. But it seemed so natural at that moment. We were all friends, relaxed, happy, ready to enjoy every minute of our stay in a city where anything was possible. After dinner, Reed suggested a visit to the casino. The bright lights of slot machines, the clinking of chips, the cheers of players at the roulette tables, the atmosphere of excitement instantly captured us. Lauren was lucky at blackjack, and Sienna watched the craps game with burning eyes. "Will you teach me?" she asked Theo, who appeared to be an experienced player. "Of course, dear," he replied, beckoning to the croupier. "It's easier than it looks." I watched Theo explain the rules to Sienna, standing too close to her, his hand resting on her waist, showing her how to properly roll the dice. But at the time, I wrote it off as general excitement and holiday cheer. After all, we were in Vegas, a city where the lines of normalcy are slightly blurred, where every night is like a carnival and every morning promises new adventures. We got back to the room well past midnight. Sienna, flushed from champagne and her craps winnings, hummed something to herself as she took off her jewelry. "That was magical," she said, hugging me. "Thank you for bringing me here." I hugged her back tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of her perfume, mixed now with the smell of cigars and casinos. There were 9 more days ahead, and I was sure this was going to be one of our best adventures yet. I awoke to sunlight streaming in through the loose curtains. The clock read 11 in the morning. Sienna was still asleep, sprawled across the bed, a strand of dark hair falling over her face, one arm hanging carelessly off the edge of the bed. Her makeup from last night was a little smudged, but even so, she looked stunning. There was an empty champagne glass on the bedside table and a purse with chips spilling out of it, a reminder of last night's successful game. I got up quietly, trying not to wake my wife, and went out onto the terrace. Las Vegas looked different in the morning, less glamorous, but still impressive. The mountains could be seen in the distance, shrouded in a light haze, and life was already boiling below. Tourists were rushing to the pools. Hotel employees were preparing for a new day. My phone vibrated. A message from Reed. "Golf at 2 o'clock. Are you in?" I quickly typed back, "Sure. Were the girls going to the spa?" "Yeah, Juliet organized a beauty day for them. Meet me in the lobby at 1:30. When I got back to the room, Sienna was already awake and sitting up in bed, looking something up on her phone. "Good morning, sleepyhead." I leaned in to kiss her, but she pulled away slightly. "I have a terrible hangover and a crumpled face," she mumbled. "I need coffee and a shower right away, no offense." I ordered room service breakfast, eggs Benedict and fresh squeezed orange juice for myself, and her favorite avocado toast and double espresso for Sienna. While she showered, I went through a few work emails, even though we'd agreed not to do business while on vacation. "Fletch, have you seen my green bikini?" Sienna came out of the bathroom wrapped in a fluffy white robe. "In my left suitcase in the side pocket," I replied without lifting my eyes from the phone. "Oh, that's right. You have such a good memory for details." She walked over and pecked my cheek. "What do we have planned for tonight?" "Me and the guys are going golfing. And I believe you guys have a spa day?" "Yeah. Juliet booked us a full treatment at the Sahara, and then we were going to lounge by the pool." There was a knock on the door. Breakfast had arrived. As we ate, Sienna talked about last night, mentioning time and again how Theo had helped her win at craps. "He's so attentive, isn't he? And so good at gambling. Can you believe he even has his own poker table at home?" I felt slightly annoyed at how often she said his name but tried not to show it. After all, Theo had been my friend for years now. "By the way, he promised to teach me how to play poker," she added, spreading avocado on her toast. "How about tonight?" "We'll see." I set my fork aside. "Depends on how long the golf lasts." Toward lunchtime, we went down to the lobby. The others were already there. Juliet in an elegant beach set, Lauren in a white sundress, Scarlett in a brightly colored mini dress. Reed and Grayson were dressed for golf, and Theo was standing impermissibly close to my wife, showing her something on his phone. "It's a poker app," I heard his voice. "You can practice while we play golf." Sienna laughed, and that laugh seemed different to me, more intimate somehow. I walked over to them, putting my hand on my wife's waist. Ready, gentlemen? Oh, Fletch. Theo patted me on the shoulder as if nothing had happened. Ready to lose me a couple $100? You wish, I said with a strained smile. We said goodbye to the girls. Sienna gave me a peck on the cheek, and I caught the scent of a new perfume, not the one I'd given her. The golf course was truly spectacular. The perfectly mowed lawns stretched to the horizon, creating the illusion of an oasis in the middle of the desert. While we waited our turn to hit, Reed talked about his new investment plans. Can you believe it? The stock soared 30% in 1 week. I told you it was going to be a successful investment. I listened, half listening, watching Theo take his shot. His movements were confident, polished. He'd always been good at sports. Perhaps that was what attracted women to him, or his casual charisma, his ability to be his own man in any company. Fletch, it's your turn. Grayson's voice snapped me out of my musings. I missed. First time in a long time. You don't seem to be on your best behavior today, Reed remarked. Is everything okay? Yeah, just didn't get much sleep. After a few holes, we took a break at the clubhouse. The waitress brought cold beer and appetizers. The conversation turned to women. Scarlett is incredible. Theo leaned back in his chair. But you know, sometimes I think I'm not ready for something serious yet. Oh, come on. Grayson grinned. You're 36 now. It's time to settle down. What's the rush? Life is one, you gotta take it all in. Theo winked and took a sip of his beer. Something in his words made me tense. I remembered the way he'd looked at Sienna last night, the way he'd taught her how to play craps, the way he'd stood too close in the lobby. By the way, your Sienna was great at the gaming table, Theo said, as if he'd read my mind. It's rare to find a woman who grasps the rules so quickly. Yes, my wife is very capable. I emphasized the word wife. My phone vibrated a message from Sienna with a picture. Her and the girls by the pool, all in sunglasses and swimsuits. But my gaze caught on a detail in the background. A male figure that seemed vaguely familiar. Hey, Theo. I turned to him. Wasn't Scarlett supposed to be with the girls at the spa? I think so, he shrugged. Why? No, nothing. We finished the game around 6 in the evening. I played worse than usual. My thoughts kept going back to Sienna. I'd never been jealous before. Had always prided myself on the fact that people liked my wife. That she knew how to keep a conversation going and charm the person I was talking to. But something had changed. Maybe it was Vegas. In this city where the line between acceptable and unacceptable becomes so thin? When we got back to the hotel, the girls were still by the pool. Sienna was lying on a chaise lounge chair, her skin glistening with suntan oil, and her nearly empty cocktail glass was next to her. How was your day? I asked, taking a seat next to her. Wonderful. Spa first, then cocktails by the pool. How's the golf going for you? Fine. I paused. Saw your picture. Were you there? Alone on vacation? What do you mean? She lifted her sunglasses. Oh, you mean those guys? They were just passing through, buying us cocktails. Nothing special. No big deal, I echoed, feeling an incomprehensible anxiety growing inside. In the evening, we gathered at Theo's restaurant. He insisted on showing us around the kitchen, introducing us to the chef. Sienna showed genuine interest in everything he told us, asking questions, laughing at his jokes. As I sat there, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was slipping away from me, that something important was happening right under my nose. When we got back to the room, Sienna stood at the window for a long time, looking out at the city at night. What are you thinking about? I asked, hugging her from behind. About how beautiful it is here, she turned to me, and about tomorrow being a new day full of adventure. I kissed her, trying to chase away all the doubts, all the anxious thoughts. But even as she fell asleep, resting her head on my shoulder, I lay awake for a long time, replaying the events of the past 2 days in my head and trying to figure out if I was really missing something or if it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. It was beginning my 3rd day in Vegas. I woke up earlier than usual and found Sienna awake, the sound of water and her soft singing coming from the bathroom. It was some unfamiliar tune I hadn't heard her sing before. Her cell phone was on her bedside table, the screen lit up with a message. I'd never read her correspondence. Trust was the foundation of our relationship. But something made me look. "Good morning. Don't forget our deal." Read the message from Theo. I felt intense anxiety. "Honey, are you up already?" Sienna came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel with damp hair. "I thought I'd order breakfast on the terrace. It's such a lovely morning." "What's the deal with you and Theo?" The question came out before I could think. She froze for a moment, then smiled. "Oh, that. He promised to teach me how to play poker, remember? We're having a mini tournament in the penthouse tonight. And why am I only finding out about this now? I mean, we discussed it at the restaurant yesterday. Don't you remember?" She walked over to the mirror and started brushing her hair. "Everyone will be there. Reed and Juliet, Grayson and Lauren, Scarlett." I really didn't remember that conversation. Maybe I missed it while I was talking to the waiter, or was I too busy with my suspicions? Breakfast passed in relative silence. Sienna was engrossed in her phone, occasionally smiling at something on the screen. I tried to focus on the fresh newspaper. "The girls have shopping today," she finally said, putting the phone away. "At the Forum Shops Mall. Will you join us?" "I have a meeting with Reed. We want to discuss a new project." "On vacation?" She raised an eyebrow. "I thought we agreed not to work." "It won't be long." I finished my coffee. "Just a quick chat." There wasn't really any meeting. I was going to follow them while they were shopping. It was undignified, I realized that, but I couldn't deal with the growing anxiety. Forum Shops was impressive in its scope. Hundreds of stores under an artificial sky that mimicked different times of day. I kept my distance, watching our ladies move from boutique to boutique. Sienna was in her element, flitting between the racks, trying on outfits, consulting with her friends. 2 hours later, Theo joined them. Allegedly, he was passing by chance. He gallantly volunteered to carry the shopping bags, joking, commenting on the outfits. I watched Sienna twirl in front of the mirror in yet another dress, and he stood behind her, gazing appraisingly at her reflection. "Fletcher, what brings you here?" Grayson's voice caught me off guard. He stood with a cup of coffee, looking at me in surprise. "Don't you have a meeting with Reed?" I stammered. "It got canceled. And you decided to secretly spy on your wife?" I could hear a mixture of surprise and disapproval in his voice. "Don't be silly. Just passing through." "Since when did you become so paranoid?" Grayson took me aside. "Look, I've known Theo for years. Yes, he likes to flirt, but he never crosses the line, especially with friends' wives." "I'm not paranoid," I snapped back. "It's just, don't you notice the way he looks at her? The way she laughs at his jokes?" "Fletch, you're getting yourself worked up. Let's go get a drink." We settled into a bar nearby. Grayson ordered us whiskey, even though it was only 3 in the afternoon. "You know, when Lauren and I first started dating, I was terribly jealous, too," he said, twirling the glass in his hands. "I felt like every man was looking at her with lust. I tormented both myself and her. Until one day I realized, the more I pushed, the more I risked losing her." I stared silently into my glass. Grayson was right. I'd never been jealous. In 5 years of marriage, Sienna and I hadn't had a single serious fight on that basis. What had changed? Maybe it's Vegas? As if reading my mind, Grayson continued. "That city changes people, makes them do stupid things. Or shows their true colors," I added grimly. That evening, the entire company gathered in Theo's penthouse. The poker table was set up by the panoramic windows, overlooking the city at night. Sienna wore the same dress she'd tried on during the day, black, with a deep back cutout. I noticed Theo cast her an approving glance. "So, dear student," he winked at her, shuffling the cards. "Ready for your first lesson?" She sat down next to him, listening intently to the explanation of the rules. I settled across from her, watching their every move. The way he leans toward her, explaining the combinations. The way she bites her lip, contemplating a move. The way their fingers casually touch as she picks up the cards. "Fletch, your move." Reed's voice brought me back to reality. I was losing, round after round. I couldn't concentrate on the game. All my attention was on the other side of the table, where Theo was whispering something in my wife's ear, and she was laughing gleefully. "I think you've had enough." Juliet gently took the whiskey glass from me. I didn't even notice as I emptied it. By midnight, the game was over. Sienna, to everyone's surprise, was the winner. "You have a talented wife," Theo said, picking up the chips. Grabs it on the fly. "Yeah, talented," I gritted through my teeth. "Shall we go, darling? It's getting late." "Oh, the girls and I wanted to sit around a little longer," Sienna smiled guiltily. "Have some champagne chat, you don't mind, do you?" I minded, very much against it. But what could I say? That I didn't trust my own wife? That I was jealous of her friend? Of course I don't mind. Just don't stay too long. In the room I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, glancing at the clock. 1 o'clock. 2, 3. At 4 o'clock the lock clicked and Sienna came back. She smelled of champagne. "Sorry I'm so late," she whispered, climbing under the covers. "We were talking." "About what?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. "About all sorts of things. About fashion, about traveling. Theo was talking about his restaurants in Europe. He talks so interestingly." Theo again. Always Theo. "Don't you think you spend too much time with him?" "What?" She propped herself up on an elbow. "Fletcher, are you jealous? Of Theo? That's ridiculous." "Ridiculous? I don't think it's very funny. I've seen the way you look at him, the way you flirt with him." "I'm not flirting. We're just socializing. He's our friend, remember? A friend who devours you with his eyes." "You know what?" She threw back the blanket. "I don't want to discuss this right now. You're drunk and acting stupid." She left for the living room, slamming the door. I was left lying in the dark, listening to my heartbeat. Something told me that this was just the beginning, that it would get worse. Much worse. The morning of the 4th day started with an empty bed. Sienna never came back to the bedroom after our fight. I found her asleep on the living room couch, covered in a plaid. Her phone was on the floor. It must have slipped out of her hand while she slept. The screen lit up with a new notification, and I froze. It was a message from Theo again. "Good morning, sleepyhead. Hope you slept well on the couch." Inside, everything went cold. How did he know where she slept? Had they texted during the night? "About what?" Sienna hissed, and I hastily backed away. I didn't want to start a new day with another scandal. Instead, I went to the gym. I needed to blow off steam, clear my head. 2 hours of grueling exercise didn't bring relief. When I got back to my room, I found Sienna eating breakfast on the terrace. She was already in full parade, flawless makeup, hair styled in waves, new silk dress. "Do you want coffee?" she asked, not lifting her eyes from the phone. "Did you text with him last night?" She looked up slowly, starting the morning with an interrogation. "It's a simple question, Sienna." "Yes, I was texting. I couldn't sleep after your jealousy scene, and Theo was up too, preparing a new menu for the restaurant. We were just chatting." "Just chatting," I chuckled bitterly. "And that's why he knows you slept on the couch?" "I mentioned it in the conversation." "Jesus, Fletcher, can you hear yourself? You're digging through my messages, spying on me. What's next? Hire a private investigator?" I sank into the chair, feeling devastated. She was right. I was acting like a man possessed. But this feeling, this terrible premonition of trouble, wouldn't let me go. "Listen." Sienna came over and put her hands on my shoulders. "We came here to vacation, to have fun with friends. Let's not ruin the vacation with silly suspicions, shall we?" Her touch, so familiar and dear, calmed me down a little. I pulled her to me and nuzzled my face into her stomach, breathing in the scent of her perfume, the same perfume I'd gotten her last Christmas. "I'm sorry. I'm being an idiot." "Yes, you are." She flicked my nose lightly. "Now get in the shower. We have a busy day today." The busy day started with a trip to Lake Mead. Reed rented a boat, and the whole company went for a ride. Sienna wore a new swimsuit, red, revealing. I noticed Theo give her a long look as she took off her pareo. On the boat, Sienna settled on the bow, exposing her face to the sun and the wind. Her hair fluttered, her skin glistening with suntan oil. She was incredibly beautiful, and I felt a prick of jealousy again, noticing how many stares she was attracting. Hey, Fletch. Reed held out a bottle of beer to me. Relax a little. Your face looks like you're at a funeral, not a vacation. I tried to smile, but it came out lame, especially when I saw Theo crouched next to Sienna, showing her something on the horizon. They were talking animatedly about something, and her laughter echoed over the water. You know, Reed said softly, sometimes being overly suspicious can ruin something that isn't really there. What do you mean? About seeing ghosts where there aren't any. Theo is our friend. Sienna is your wife. It's simple. But it wasn't simple. Not when I saw his hand accidentally touch her shoulder. How she leans closer so she can hear his words better. How they exchange glances across the table during lunch on the deck. After the lake, we returned to the hotel. A party was planned for the evening at one of the most exclusive clubs in Vegas. I watched Sienna get ready, critically examining herself in the mirror. Don't you think it's too much? She twirled around in the new dress she'd bought yesterday. The black silk hugged every curve of her body. Just right, I replied, trying to sound casual. You look beautiful. At the club, we were escorted to the VIP area. The music rumbled, strobe lights cut through the darkness, and waiters scurried around with trays stacked with cocktails. Sienna immediately pulled Lauren and Juliet away to dance. Champagne? Theo appeared with a bottle of Dom Perignon. No thanks. I looked away, pretending to be engrossed in my conversation with Reed. But out of the corner of my eye, I was still watching the dance floor. The way Theo had joined the girls. The way he danced with Sienna, too close, too intimate. The way his hands slid around her waist. I'll get more drinks, I said abruptly, standing up. At the bar, I ran into Scarlett. She was noticeably tipsy and moved closer to me than propriety demanded. You know, Fletcher, she said, stretching her words, sometimes men don't see what's going on under their noses. What do you mean? About your wife not being as easy as she looks. And Theo, he always gets what he wants. I grabbed her elbow. What do you mean? Oh, come on, she tried to break free. Do you really not notice their stares, their casual touches? The way they constantly find an excuse to be alone together? Speak more clearly. My voice shook. Yesterday, after poker, when everyone broke up, they thought no one could see, but I went back for my purse. What did you see? But Scarlett was already distracted by the waiter with the shots passing by. Or maybe she just pretended to be distracted. I went back to the VIP area. Sienna was just back from the dance floor, flushed, eyes sparkling. Theo followed her like a shadow. Honey, dance with me. She tugged on my arm. I'm not in the mood. I released my hand. What happened yesterday after poker? She froze. What do you mean? When everyone broke up, what happened between you and Theo? Nothing happened. We just what? I raised my voice and a few people turned in our direction. Fletcher, you're drunk. She tried to pull me away, but I didn't give in. Answer the question. Hey, man, Theo put a hand on my shoulder. Maybe you should really... I dropped his hand. Don't touch me, and stay away from my wife. Fletcher, Sienna grabbed my arm. Stop it now. But I couldn't stop anymore. All the built-up tension, all the suspicions and fears of the last few days came rushing out. Do you think I'm blind? Can't see what's going on? Your looks, your touches, your secret messages. You've lost your mind. Sienna took a step back. Tears stood in her eyes. I can't listen to this. She turned around and walked quickly toward the exit. Theo twitched to follow her, but I blocked his path. Don't even think about it. Look, you've got it all wrong. Really? What am I supposed to understand? Explain it to me. By this point, a small crowd had gathered around us. Reed and Grayson tried to pull me aside, but I resisted. You need to get some air. Reed held me firmly by the shoulders. Come on, let's go get some air. I let myself be led away from the club. The night air was hot and dry. Somewhere in the distance, casino lights were twinkling, music was playing, people were laughing, and I stood leaning against the wall and felt my world crumbling. What's happening to me? I asked the night sky. But the sky was silent. Just like my phone was silent. No call or text from Sienna. I spent the rest of the night at the hotel bar, methodically draining glass after glass. Sienna didn't return my calls or texts. The bartender, An older man with a neatly trimmed mustache shook his head understandingly as he poured me a whiskey. "Vegas, sir," he said, wiping down the counter. "This city can turn heaven into hell in one night." By 6 in the morning, I was up to the room after all. My hands shook as I slid the keycard into the lock. It was quiet and empty inside. The bed was untouched. Sienna never came back. There was a note on her pillow, written in familiar flying handwriting. "I'm staying at Juliet's. We need a break from each other." Juliet's? Somehow I doubted it. Especially after that write-off at Cartier. What can you buy in a jewelry store in the middle of the night? And more importantly, with whom? I took a shower, trying to wash away my hangover and anxious thoughts. A stranger with red eyes and stubble looked back at me from the mirror. When had I changed so much? When had our perfect life started to fall apart? My phone vibrated, a message from Reed. "Breakfast at the hotel restaurant in an hour. We need to talk." The restaurant wasn't crowded. Reed was waiting for me at a table by the window, stirring his coffee thoughtfully. He looked unaccustomedly serious. "How are you?" he asked when I sat down across from him. "Lousy. Where is she?" "Really at Juliet's. And yes, she's fine, in case you were wondering." The waitress brought a menu, but I declined. I couldn't get a bite down my throat. "Listen, Fletch." Reed pushed his cup away. "We've been friends for years. And there's something I have to tell you." "What's that?" "What's going on between Sienna and Theo?" At that moment, something rattled at a neighboring table. We turned around. Some tourist had dropped a breakfast tray. When I turned to Reed again, his expression had changed. "You know, it doesn't matter, just pay attention." "No way. Finish your sentence." "Sorry, buddy, I gotta go. Meeting with my partners." He hurriedly got up and walked away, leaving me completely bewildered. What was he trying to say? That he knew something he wasn't telling me? In the hotel lobby, I ran into Scarlett. She looked wrinkled after last night, but her eyes were clear. "Oh, it's you." She wrinkled her nose. "I'm sorry about last night. I was drunk and said some unnecessary things." "No, wait." I blocked her path. "You saw something. What kind of something?" She looked around nervously. "Look, I don't want to get involved. Theo, he can be very persuasive. And your wife? What about my wife?" "Ask her yourself, or him, or look at the camera footage in the penthouse hallway." She slipped out of my grasp and hurried toward the elevators, leaving behind a trail of expensive perfume and more questions. I spent the next few hours pacing around the room. My thoughts were muddled. Should I ask security for the security tapes? But on what pretext? "Hello, I suspect my wife is cheating on me with my friend. Could you show me the video from the hallway?" Absurd. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon came a text from Sienna. "Meet me at the pool bar at 5. We need to talk." I mechanically replied, "Okay." The meeting was 3 hours away. I tried to get some work done. I went through my email, answered a few calls, but I kept coming back to what might have happened last night, what Reed hadn't said, Scarlett's hints. At 4:30, I went down to the pool. The bar was nearly empty. Most of the guests were hiding from the afternoon heat indoors. I ordered a double whiskey and waited. Sienna showed up exactly at 5. She was in a white linen suit, her hair pulled back into a high ponytail, a new necklace around her neck. My heart clenched. "Hi." She sat down across from me, took off her sunglasses. Her eyes were slightly puffy. Had she been crying? "Hi, that's a beautiful necklace." "This?" She absent-mindedly touched the jewelry. "A gift from Juliet, for the collection I designed for her gallery." A lie. I knew for sure it was a lie. But I kept silent. "We need to talk about yesterday," she began. "About how you flirted with Theo in front of everyone?" "I wasn't flirting. We were just dancing, as friends." "Friends," I grinned bitterly. "And what happened after the poker game, when everyone broke up?" She tensed. "Nothing happened. We were just discussing my new collection. He offered to host a fashion show at one of his restaurants." "At 3 in the morning? What's the matter with you?" She raised her voice. "Are you following me? Checking my messages? What's the next step, putting a bug in my purse? Or maybe you should. Then I'd know where you really were that night." "I told you, Juliet's." And that's why at 3 in the morning our card was charged 20,000 at Cartier? She turned pale. Fear flashed in her eyes for a moment, but she quickly pulled herself together. It was supposed to be a surprise for our anniversary, which is in 4 months. Yes, I saw the perfect necklace and— Stop it! I slammed my fist on the table. The glasses rattled. Stop lying to me. I've seen the way you look at each other, the way he touches you, the way you laugh at his jokes. I'm not an idiot, Sienna. She stood up, clenching her fists. You know what? I don't have to listen to this. You're the one destroying our marriage with your own paranoia. Not Theo, not me, you. Tell me the truth. For once in your life, tell me the truth. The truth? She leaned toward me, eyes glittering with anger. The truth is that you've turned into an obsessive paranoid. You see cheating where there isn't any. You're destroying not only our marriage, but friendships with people who've been around for years. People who sleep with my wife? The slap burned her cheek. Sienna grabbed her purse and quickly walked away. I noticed her pull out her cell phone, dialing someone's number. And I was willing to bet anything that it wasn't Juliet she was calling. The bartender silently placed a new glass of whiskey in front of me. There were kids splashing in the pool, music playing somewhere, and sparse clouds floating across the sky. Just a normal day in Vegas, for everyone but me. I pulled out my phone and dialed Grayson's number. We need to talk. Now. Fletch, I'm not sure this is a good idea. Please, you're my friend. You need to tell me what's going on. A long pause, then a heavy sigh. Okay, meet me at the rooftop bar in an hour. I finished my whiskey and headed for the elevators. The mirrored wall reflected a man with a wan gaze and a bitter crease at his mouth. A man whose life had crumbled like a house of cards in 5 days. The hotel's rooftop bar was one of the most exclusive places in Vegas. The floor-to-ceiling panoramic windows overlooked the entire city, and it seemed especially magical at dusk. I sat at a table in the corner, watching the sun slowly sink below the horizon, coloring the sky blood red. Grayson was 20 minutes late. He looked tense, his tie was slightly loosened, and droplets of sweat glistened on his forehead, unusual for a man who always kept to himself. Sorry I'm late. He sat down across from me, avoiding looking me in the eye. There was business. What business could there be on vacation? I gave him a hard stare. He ordered a scotch, drank it in a gulp, and only then looked up at me. Look, what I'm about to tell you, it's complicated. Just talk. Do you remember how we met Theo? 4 years ago, at his first restaurant? I nodded. Of course I remembered. He seemed so charismatic then, successful, confident, the perfect friend and business partner. So, Grayson tapped his fingers nervously on the table. This isn't the first time when he's shown interest in other people's women. I froze. What do you mean? Last year at the opening of his restaurant in San Francisco, there was this couple there, James and Olivia Preston. James was a big investor, and Olivia, she reminded me of Sienna, just as bright, vibrant. He fell silent, called the waiter over, and ordered another drink. And what happened? Theo started with innocent flirting, business meetings, casual touches, compliments, then middle-of-the-night texts, secret meetings. 2 months later, Olivia left her husband. And you kept quiet? All this time? I hoped it was different with Sienna, that he wouldn't dare not with a friend's wife. When? My voice sounded hoarse. When did you notice? Remember the party on the yacht a month ago? I saw them talking on the lower deck, something in their looks. And then those chance meetings in town started. Sienna often dined at his restaurant, alone. I remembered her saying she was meeting with clients, discussing a new collection. How many more lies were there in our lives? So what now? What do I do? Honestly, I don't know, but be careful. Theo, he's not who he says he is. At that moment, my phone vibrated. A message from Sienna. I'm at the Bellagio restaurant. We really need to talk. No yelling or accusations. She's at the Bellagio, I said to Grayson. Wants to talk. Alone? Didn't specify. He shook his head. Theo has a regulars table there, in a separate office. I stood up abruptly, but Grayson grabbed my arm. Wait! Don't do anything stupid. You do realize that's what they're expecting, right? That your aggression will only justify her leaving? What do you suggest? Sit back and watch my so-called friends steal my wife? No, but you need to act smarter. I sank back into my chair, feeling absolutely devastated. Outside the window, Vegas was lighting up its neon lights. The music was getting louder. Life continued to boom. And I was sitting here, at the rooftop bar, watching my life fall apart. You know what the lousy part is? I grinned bitterly. I really loved her, didn't I? I still do. I know. Grayson put a hand on my shoulder. And that's why you have to act with a cool head. My phone vibrated again, this time a message from Reed. Just saw Theo at the Bellagio, headed towards the restaurant. Sorry, man. I showed the message to Grayson. Shit, he swore. Look, maybe we should... But I wasn't listening anymore. It was like something clicked in my head. All these days, all the suspicions and fears, all the misunderstandings and lies, all of a sudden everything fell into place. I'm going there. Fletch, no. I have to see it with my own eyes. Think of the consequences. One scandal and your reputation. To hell with my reputation. I pushed his hand away with force. I want to know the truth, the whole truth. Taking the elevator down, I checked my wallet. The card from Theo's room that I'd swiped from the concierge this morning was in there. I don't know why I did it, just a hunch, or paranoia. It didn't matter now. Vegas was a blurry blur of neon lights outside the cab window. The driver was saying something about traffic and weather, but I wasn't listening. Sienna's face was in front of me, the same Sienna I'd met 5 years ago, the one who looked at me with love and admiration, who swore eternal loyalty. Where did we take a wrong turn? When did our love turn into this ugly game of cat and mouse? At the entrance to the Bellagio, a fountain blazed, thousands of jets of water soaring into the sky to classical music. Tourists stood with their heads up, gasping in admiration, and I walked through the crowd, feeling something dark and scary growing inside. At the restaurant, the maitre d' tried to stop me. Excuse me, sir, do you have a reservation? I'm here to see my wife, Sienna Montgomery. Ah, yes, Madam is in a private office, but she asked not to. I dismissed him and walked forward. I knew where this office was. We'd dined here with Theo more than once. At the time, it had seemed like an act of friendship. Now I understood. He was marking territory. He was preparing the ground. I stopped in front of the office door. Inside, I could hear voices, muffled but discernible. Sienna's laughter. Theo's velvet baritone. Was it just me, or did I hear the sound of a kiss? My hand reached for the doorknob. One turn and I would know the truth. The whole truth. But was I ready for it? My hand froze on the doorknob. Seconds stretched into eternity. The sounds of the restaurant faded away, leaving only the thudding of my own heartbeat in my ears. I slowly turned the knob and pushed the door open. The first thing I saw was candles. Dozens of candles spread throughout the office. Their flickering light created an intimate atmosphere, casting bizarre shadows on the walls. A snow-white tablecloth, a silver champagne bucket, 2 glasses of unfinished wine. And them. Sienna sat with her back to me, her dark hair spilling over her shoulders. Theo stood beside her, leaning toward her, one hand resting on her shoulder. On the table in front of them lay an open velvet box. No one noticed my appearance. I could hear their conversation as if through a column of water. It's too much, Sienna's voice trembled. I can't accept. You can. Theo's voice was velvet. You deserve the best. He never realized that. The ringing in my ears intensified. I took a step forward, the floorboard creaking under my foot. They turned around at the same time. Sienna's face went white. Fletcher, don't stop. My voice sounded unnaturally calm. Keep going. I seem to have interrupted something important. Mate, it's not what you think. Theo held up his hands in a conciliatory gesture, but I noticed his eyes darting toward the exit, judging the distance. Wrong? I slowly made my way to the table, taking the wine glass, sniffing it. So you weren't the one who just gave my wife a piece of jewelry? You weren't the one who told her she deserved better? Fletcher, please. Sienna stood up, her hands shaking. Let's talk calmly. Calmly? I laughed, and that laugh startled even myself. 5 days. It only took 5 days in Vegas to ruin 5 years of marriage. And you want to talk about that in peace? I shifted my gaze to the box. Inside was a white gold bracelet with a scattering of diamonds. There was an engraving on the inside. I couldn't make out the words, but their presence spoke volumes. You know what the funny thing is? I picked up the bracelet, twirling it in my hands. I noticed something amiss from day one. Your looks, your laughter, those accidental touches. But I convinced myself it was paranoia, that I was crazy with jealousy. You're not crazy, Sienna said quietly. It's just, things have changed. We've changed. We? I looked into her eyes. Or have you? Look, Theo took a step forward. No one meant for this to happen. Sometimes feelings just... I didn't let him finish. My fist met his jaw with such force that he flew back against the wall. The glasses on the table rattled. The candles flickered. Fletcher! Sienna shouted. Theo straightened up, wiping blood from his shattered lip. Is this what you wanted? You think violence will solve anything? No, I shook my head. But it feels pretty damn good. Stop it! Sienna stepped between us. You're both acting like children. Like children? I grinned bitterly. What do you call what you've been doing? These secret meetings, messages in the middle of the night, random coincidences? You think I don't know about Olivia Preston? Theo shuddered. Who? It doesn't matter. What matters is that it's your MO, right? You find a successful married woman, charm her, give her expensive gifts, convince her she's worthy of more. And then what then, Theo? You dump them like you did Olivia? That's different. He looked at Sienna. With Sienna, it's real. Real? I laughed. How romantic. How long have you two had it? For real. Sienna lowered her eyes. 2 months. 2 months. That meant even before Vegas. All those business lunches, client meetings, collection shows. So many lies. So much betrayal. So now what? I sank into the chair, suddenly feeling infinitely tired. Will you leave together? Start a new life? We didn't plan. Sienna began. No plans? I pulled out my phone, opening the messages. And what's this? A reservation for 2 tickets to Paris next week. Did you think I wouldn't find out? She turned even paler. You've been watching my mail? Did you give me a choice? All this time, all those smiles, all those kisses, all that talk of the future. Was it all a lie? Not everything. She shook her head, and I saw tears in her eyes. What was between us? It was real. I just stopped being good enough? I stood up, walking over to the window. The Vegas night glimmered behind the glass, indifferent, beautiful, cruel. I was hoping to the last minute that I was wrong, wasn't I? That all these signs, hints, coincidences were just my imagination playing tricks on me. Fletcher, she came toward me, tried to touch my shoulder, but I pulled away. Don't. My phone vibrated in my pocket, a message from Grayson. Where are you? Is everything okay? I looked at the screen, then at Sienna, at Theo, at the unfinished wine and candles, at the bracelet still on the table. The whole scene suddenly seemed unreal to me, like a bad play in a third-rate theater. You know what? I headed for the exit. Enjoy your dinner, and Paris. I hope you... I looked at Theo. Don't leave her like the others. And you... I shifted my gaze to Sienna. Hope it was worth it. Wait! She rushed after me. We need to talk things out. No, I shook my head. We don't have to anymore. Everything's already been said and done. I walked out of the office, closing the door carefully behind me. I walked through the restaurant, past the surprised maitre d', through the luxurious hotel lobby. The fountain was still dancing to the music. The tourists were still aying in admiration. And I walked forward, feeling each step taking me further away from my past life. From a love that turned out to be an illusion. A friendship that turned into betrayal. Vegas continued to glow with neon lights, promising happiness and good fortune to anyone willing to take a chance. But I no longer believed its promises. Pulling out my phone, I texted Grayson, It's over. Meet me at the bar. The ghost bar on the 42nd floor of the hotel was where rich people hid from reality. Heavy velvet curtains, muted jazz, waiters in white gloves and three-piece suits. It breathed luxury and loneliness. Grayson was waiting for me at his favorite table in the corner, where I had a stunning view of Vegas at night. In front of him was a nearly empty bottle of 25-year-old Macallan whiskey. I sank into the chair, loosening my tie. My hands were still shaking, whether from adrenaline or from the realization of what had happened. You know, when Sienna and I met, she was working on her first collection. Tiny studio, endless sketches, lack of sleep. But her eyes burned with such fire, such passion for life. Grayson listened silently, twirling his glass in his hands. It was that fire that I fell in love with, her ability to see beauty in everything. Even here in Vegas, remember how she marveled at the casino architecture, the fountains, all that artificial splendor? I remember, Grayson replied quietly. It was always special to her. And now, I took a swig of my whiskey. Now I see that fire has burned us both. The waiter appeared silently at the table with a new bottle. His eyes read professional indifference. How many such stories had he seen in his career? How many broken hearts had drowned their sorrows in expensive alcohol? What exactly happened at the restaurant? Grayson asked cautiously. I told him everything. The candles, the bracelet, Sienna's confession, the tickets to Paris. With each word, the events became more real, as if everything up to that point had been a bad dream. 2 months, Grayson shook his head. Right under our noses. I've been noticing the signs, haven't I? Her new perfume, she'd never changed her scent before. The late-night calls from clients. Random meetings with Theo in places she'd never been before. I pulled out my phone. 10 missed calls from Sienna, 3 messages. I didn't open it. Do you remember that night a month ago, when we all had dinner at Theo's new restaurant? I continued. She was wearing a red dress, talking about going to Paris for Fashion Week. I realize now they were already planning it then, right at my desk, surrounded by our friends. Grayson poured more whiskey. What now? I don't know. I really don't know. At a neighboring table, a young couple was celebrating their engagement. Champagne, laughter, kisses. The girl kept admiring the ring glittering on her finger. They looked so happy, so sure of their future. We were like that too. I nodded in their direction. Remember our engagement party? At that little Italian restaurant in Soho? I remember. You dropped the ring 3 times before you could put it on her finger. And she laughed. Not angry, not annoyed, just laughing, saying it was the most adorable moment of her life. The musicians at the bar began playing What a Wonderful World. The bitter irony of the moment didn't escape me. You know what I found in her makeup bag this morning? I pulled a small note from my pocket. A to-do list, the usual list. Pick up my dress from the dry cleaners, make an appointment with the beautician, buy tickets to the trade show. And the last item, talk to F about divorce. Just like that, between the dry cleaners and the trade show. Grayson took the note from me, read it, crumpled it in his fist. Maybe you should leave. Right now? And show her that she's won? That I'm broken? I shook my head. No, I'll stay for the rest of the trip. Just moving to a different room. Are you sure? That's going to be complicated? Nothing's going to be easy anymore. My phone vibrated again. This time a message from Reed. They've left the restaurant, heading to the hotel. I wonder, I grinned bitterly. Whose room will they go to? Ours or his? Fletch. You know what the lousy part is? I still love her, even now, after everything. I look at her picture. I showed the screensaver on my phone of Sienna and me laughing in front of the ocean, and my heart sinks. It's like the last 2 hours were just a nightmare. A new group of customers entered the bar, loud, clearly tipsy. Among them was a girl who looked something like Sienna, the same dark hair, the same grace in her movements. For a moment my heart sank, but it wasn't her. I need to get my things from my room. I glanced at the clock. It was almost midnight. Can you help? Sure, but can't we wait until morning? No, I want to do it now while I still have the strength. We paid and headed for the elevators. In the mirrored walls of the cab, I saw my reflection, a wrinkled suit, a loosened tie, a blank stare. When had I gotten so old? The 40th-floor corridor was empty. I pulled out my keycard, but before I opened the door, I froze. What if they're in there? Do you want me to go in first? Grayson suggested. I shook my head and resolutely inserted the card into the lock. A green light, a click, and the door opened. The room was empty, but there were signs of Sienna's presence everywhere. Her perfume on the dressing table, scattered fashion magazines, a half-drunk cup of morning coffee. On the bed lay the same blue dress she'd worn that first night. "I'll only take the essentials," I said, pulling out my suitcase. Let her take the rest. As I packed, I tried not to think about how many times we'd woken up in that bed over the past few days, how she'd kissed me in the morning, sleepy and warm, how she'd made plans for the future, our future that no longer existed. On the bedside table, I noticed her wedding ring. She never took it off, even when she was working on sketches, even when she was playing sports. And now it was lying there like an unwanted trinket. "Fletch!" Grayson put a hand on my shoulder. "Let's go. I booked you a room on another floor." I took the ring, twirled it in my hands. The diamond still sparkled in the light of the desk lamp, but now that glow seemed cold and lifeless. We left the room, and I took one last look at the place where I had been happy that morning, where I still believed in love and loyalty, where the world was still whole. The new room on the 45th floor was smaller than the previous one, but with a better view of the city. I sat on the balcony all night, watching Vegas slowly fade away, watching some lights go out and others come on, watching the sky slowly lighten in the east. At 6 in the morning, Reed called, "You awake?" "There's no sleep." "Come down to the lobby. We'll take a ride." His black Maybach was waiting out front. Reed was behind the wheel, an unusual sight. He usually preferred to use a driver. "Where are we going?" I asked, settling into the passenger seat. "You'll see." We drove outside the city. The desert greeted us with the coolness of early morning and a vast horizon. After half an hour, Reed turned onto a dirt road leading to a small firing range. "Remember when you said you liked to shoot?" He turned off the engine. "Thought you could use to blow off some steam." The trunk revealed a briefcase with 2 pistols and boxes of ammo. Reed had obviously prepared ahead of time. "How did you know? That I wouldn't forgive you?" "Because I know you." He handed me protective headphones. "You can forgive a lot of things, but not betrayal." We spent the next hour shooting targets. Each shot echoed in my chest, each hole in the cardboard strangely satisfying. I pictured Theo's face, his smug smile, his hands on my wife's waist. "Feel better?" Reed asked when we took a break. "Not really." I sat down on the hood of the car, looking out at the rising sun. "You know, I keep thinking, maybe it's my own fault. Working too hard, not paying enough attention." "Stop it." Reed handed me a bottle of water. "It's not your fault at all. They made their choice." "Yeah, choices." I grinned bitterly. "I wonder if she's packed her bags yet. I thought they were leaving for Paris on Friday." "You don't need to know that." "I do, because I have to be there. Gotta see my life fall apart." We were back at the hotel in time for breakfast. The restaurant was unusually empty, just a few couples at distant tables and a lone businessman with a laptop. "Mr. Montgomery," the maitre d' approached our table. "Mrs. Montgomery asked me to give you this." He placed an envelope in front of me and delicately withdrew. Inside was a room key and a short note. I picked up my things. "Sorry about everything. S." Couldn't even write a note properly. I crumpled the paper. 5 years of marriage and all she can say is sorry for everything? Maybe that's better? Reed set the menu aside. Fewer words, less pain. There's going to be pain either way. After breakfast, I went up to our former room. It looked unaccustomedly empty. Gone were her creams and perfumes, magazines and shoes strewn across the floor. Only on the dressing table was her hairpin, a small one with a pearl. I remembered giving it to her on our first anniversary. In the closet hung only my forgotten coat. In the bathroom, 1 toothpick instead of 2. Her engagement ring was still on the bedside table. She hadn't taken it back. The phone rang. Grayson. "Where are you?" In the room, our former room. Come down to the bar. I think you should see this. The pool bar was noisy. The cocktail hour was starting. Grayson sat at the far table, a clipboard in front of him. Look. He turned the screen toward me. An airline website, passenger list for a flight from Las Vegas to Paris. 2 names, Theodore Kingsley and Sienna Montgomery. They rescheduled the flight for today, Grayson said quietly. In 3 hours. You know what? I stood up. I'm flying out today too, home. Are you sure? More than sure. I've had enough of Vegas. In my new hotel room, I quickly packed my bags. All these days I'd been living like a dream, clinging to the last crumbs of hope. Now it was time to wake up. Before leaving, I went up to our old suite one last time. I took my coat from the closet, looked around to see if I'd forgotten anything. The ring was still on the table. I picked it up, twirled it in my hands. 5 years ago, it had symbolized eternal love. Now it was nothing but broken promises. Reed and Grayson were waiting for me in the lobby. Lauren and Juliet kept to the side, avoiding looking me in the eye. Taxi in 10 minutes, Reed said. Sure you don't want me to drive you? I'm sure. I need to be alone. I hugged my friends goodbye. No matter what, they stayed with me. True friendship withstands any challenge. Call me when you fly in, Grayson patted my shoulder. As I left the hotel, I cast one last glance at the luxurious lobby, at the glittering chandeliers, at the fountains outside the window. 10 days ago, I had come here a happy man, confident in my love and friendship. Now I was leaving with an emptiness in my heart and a ring in my pocket. At the entrance, the doorman was loading my suitcases into a cab. The driver turned on the air conditioning. It was starting to be another hot day in Vegas. To the airport? He asked. Yes, to the airport. There was something stirring in my pocket, a ring. I pulled it out, read the engraving on the inside one last time. Forever yours, S. I rolled down the window and tossed the ring into the desert. Let it lie there among the sands and rocks, another broken dream in a city built on dreams. Everything okay, sir? The driver asked, noticing my gesture. Yes, I leaned back in the seat. Everything's okay now.